my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract our highest desires. What is the awakening? This is the moment in time when humanity rises up out of the darkness. Who is awakening? Each one of us present on earth today, reclaiming our sovereignty, seeking greater possibilities in our reality, and looking for solutions. We know being awakened is not a lofty ideal, but a necessity. If we can transform ourselves, we can change the world. Guests on Her Conversations will speak to your spirituality, sensuality, and soul. Listen to their stories and hear how they are in service to the world. Let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. Before diving into this week's episode, I want to share with you a few ways that I can support you. Firstly, I invite you to tune in to Her Inspirations, which is the sister podcast to this title. And this is where in each episode I explore with you a different aspect of our spiritual and creative journeys. Also, if you join the mailing list, you'll receive emails and additional teaching points and resources for you to explore deeper on your own personal inquiry. If you're somebody who has always wanted to be heard in the world, whether that means on your own podcast, showing up on social media, public speaking, or even just speaking up in your life, I've created Your Awakened Voice for you. This is my course which uses my holistic approach that acknowledges the intricate connection between your physical body, mind, and spirit. This course empowers you to discover and develop your voice. Or maybe you would choose to work with me on a one-to-one level. If you know that there's a purpose in your life, my purpose is to support you confidently, follow your intuition, and create your big vision. The link for further information on all of these is in the show notes below. My guest this week is Deb Krier, who provides a range of services focused on supporting individuals and businesses navigating the challenges of cancer. She empowers those dealing with cancer to embrace their inner warrior, build a tribe, energize their voices, and expand their choices. During our conversation, Deb shares about her own cancer journey, her intense emotions, dealing with the reactions of the people in her life, and then how she created her organization, tryingnottodie.live. And as always, I begin by asking my guest. Her is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. When do you feel that higher energetic resonance?
For me, it's when I am around the people who I connect with. So my people, right? And whether it's business, whether it's personal, but I love when we all share similar interests and things like that. And the brain waves just really start going, right? And so I just love that. And on the flip side, when we're not feeling that, maybe we shouldn't be around those people.
Perfect answer. Thank you. And Deb, before we get into the meat and bones of our conversation today, I just want to give you an opportunity to share about your story and how it led you into the work that you're doing today.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. This is a great program that you've got. I'll give the real condensed version because my story is pretty long. In 2015, I was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And it was initially diagnosed as stage 0, which was that it's going to be easy to treat. And then over the course of several months, we realized, no, not only was it not that, it had spread. And so kind of leaped in with doing a pretty aggressive form of treatment. I chose to go the traditional route and had a massive reaction to my very first chemotherapy treatment. Almost passed away. It was within hours, literally. And, I had multiple surgeries after that. Was in the hospital for quite a long period of time. Got in and out, more complications. I just have to be special, right? And through the course of that, though, I learned that it really is about who we have around us and who our support system is. And, someone sent me a poem, I think when I was very first diagnosed, that said, "Fate says to the warrior, you cannot withstand the storm. And the warrior responds, I am the storm. And I feel so much about that. I'm not a cancer patient. I'm not a cancer survivor. I'm a cancer warrior, because no matter what, we're in the fight for our lives. And so, I've just kind of gone merrily along. I ignored when they told me things weren't going to go well. I was like, I got stuff to do. And ended up with multiple surgical procedures. I'm now up to, I believe, 33. I'm on my third cancer. But through it all, I had one. I was in a business group, and one of the leader of the group told me. She said, you did not go through everything you have gone through without using it to help others. And so that was when we started tryingnottodie.live. It truly is, we get so focused whenever we have a serious illness on trying to not die that we forget that we have to live, whether it's 5 hours, 5 days, 50 years, whatever it is. We have to focus on that living part. And a big part of that is, how do we build our tribes? As warriors, we have to have our tribes around us. So who are those people who are going to be our supporters and really provide what we need from a mental, a spiritual, even a medical issue? Who are those people, and how do we get them as part of our tribe? And that's just kind of where we've been going with this.
So let's talk about the support system and the support network that you've created. How did you come to recognize who was there for you and who was available and able to support you in the way that you needed? Because sometimes when situations happen in a lifetime, you realize that not everyone who you've known has the strength to see you through it, and it can test the level of their commitment to you. Or sometimes it's not necessarily even about you, it's just, it kind of puts something into them that they feel that they can't serve you or anything like that. So there's multiple reasons why people seem to abandon us when we need them the most. In kind of finding out who your tribe were, how did that pan out? Like, did you see some people leave? Did you see other people came through? Can you also speak to how you kind of built yourself around that? Like I said, the disappointment of seeing people that you felt were there, like, we call them ride or dies, that actually were only there for the ride. In seeing that not everyone stood by you that you thought would, how did you work on processing that quickly enough so that you didn't spend too much time there? Because obviously when you're going through so much physically, you need your mental capacity with you and not kind of caught in something, so that you can keep yourself moving forward.
What you said is so true. It was kind of self-selecting with the people. Some of the people who I thought would be a part of this process completely disappeared. And I understand it's hard, especially for someone who might be the same age, right? Because all of a sudden they're faced with, that could be me. When I first discovered, my initial diagnosis, I'd gone to the doctor by myself. And so my first call was obviously to my husband, then to my mom. And then I texted my best friend, didn't hear anything. Now, I've known her since I was 5. And I texted her, waited a while because it's during a weekday. I mean, she's busy, she's working. I texted again, didn't hear. And then, my little heart's getting ready to break, right? But I thought, okay, she's got 2 phones. Maybe I sent it to her work phone as opposed to, and so I texted again and still didn't hear anything. And finally, several hours later, she responded and she said, I am having trouble dealing with this, but I will. And it took her about 24 hours. And then she was, what can I do? And she is in Colorado. I'm in Atlanta. She's come out several times to help with all this, and obviously been, a big supporter. Some of the other people who have been a big part of this process were people who I didn't even knew I existed, right? And they have come through and just been incredible. And developed what, I'm sure will be, lifelong friendships and things like that. But it is hard when we think hey, this person is my bosom buddy, my friend from, however long ago, and they can't come through. And it's not, when I finally came to the realization that it wasn't anything that either of us had done, it was just sometimes people can't deal with other people who are sick, and sometimes friendships are just ready to end, right? And this kind of gave it a reason. But, I think the big thing was for me to remember, yeah, it was about me, but it didn't mean there was anything wrong with them. I mentally at least wished them well and then tried to not dwell on it. Now, it still stings a little bit, right? Because there were people who I had thought would, at least send me a card, a get well card, who could not even do that. But I think part of that too is they don't know what to do. I've discovered that because people often tell me, my friend, my business associate, my relative was diagnosed with cancer and I don't know what to do. It's kind of like grief, right? When somebody dies, we don't know what to say. So rather than saying what we think might be the wrong thing, we don't say anything at all. And, and then the problem really does become that, then it goes on too long. You hate to say, well, hey, I hear you had cancer several years ago. How are you doing? And so, yeah, that it just kind of fades away. When people had told me, we didn't know what to do, I said, Hallmark has cards. I still have all the cards that people sent to me. It's, or whether you send them, a wish on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, just that little bit of knowing that somebody cares can really make a big difference. And it's, so even if it's hard for you, maybe you don't go visit. I mean, I had people who came and visited me, and to say I looked bad in the hospital would have been an understatement. I mean, I was scary. And, and so I really didn't want people to visit me. And that's, I mean, it takes a lot of fortitude to go visit somebody in a hospital. And, so maybe you don't do that, but maybe you do, you text them, you call them, you do something, but just don't let it go. Now, if it really is time for that relationship, that friendship to end, well, then, yeah, wish everybody well, and away you go.
And like you spoke about being in the hospital and saying that you look bad. I mean, when you were in those points where you probably didn't recognize yourself, where were you in terms of your emotions? Where were you in terms of, your faith, your spirituality? What did that do to you to kind of see how there was such a transformation of what was happening to you because of the condition that you were dealing with and trying to heal from? How did you find yourself in the midst of that when you're on the outside looking in? For the people who do step forward, you don't want to feel that your contribution is just trite or light. You want to feel that you want to show something, but you can never understand from the outside looking in. And then so many people often don't really speak about what it is from the inside looking out.
Right.
What was your experience there?
It was very weird. The complication that I got was a complication due to chemotherapy, and happens at least at that point in time, less than 1% of the time. Like I said, I have to be special. And at that point, I was the only person who had ever survived it. And that was because my doctor had another patient die from it. So she knew what it was. And so they knew immediately what to do. But, it was, I spent 7 weeks in and out of the hospital and ICU. And I slept a great deal. I mean, I was very, very ill. And so I just slept. I mean, which is your body's way to heal itself. And so that was something that I think was so important. Was I really did. I just slept. I watched a whole lot of half of Hallmark movies, and then would sleep through the rest of them, right? But there was a wide variety of things going through. I mean, the biggest thing really was I was not ready to die. I mean, what did I need to do to get through it? And so, kept pushing with all of those things. There was also anger, right? This was not supposed to happen to me. What did I do had I done something to make this happen?
Mm.
And, and frustration, man, I tell you, I was hooked to so many things I could not move. At one point, I had 8 IVs. I would have had a heart monitor, a catheter, and probably some other tubes going hither and thither. So I was completely bedridden. The fact that I couldn't get up and walk around, and I probably didn't have the energy to get up and walk around, but it was very frustrating. And I was so very fortunate that the vast majority of my medical team were incredible. They just, which they all are. They took such good care of me, and I know that they truly saved my life. My mom came out. She lives in Kansas, and she came out and stayed and helped take care of me. And the one really nice thing was I was never alone at the hospital. My husband, my mom, or friends were always there. They spent the night, everything, and my aunt came out also, and so that really helped, because I think if I had been alone, the dark might have gotten darker, because then I could have, and one of the things, and I still, I mean, this was such a fascinating time for me, because like I said, I slept a lot, but when I was awake, I wanted my brain to be engaging. And so, especially with my mom, I told her, tell me stories about what it was like when you were first working, I just tell me, what it was like as a young girl. And I'm pretty sure I slept through it, and I asked her, 20 times to tell me the same story. But just hearing those stories, I think was so much fun, because they were stories I had never heard her tell, or at least didn't remember her telling. And and when other people would come, I would say, I don't care what you do, just talk to me. Talk to me. So kind of having that going on was interesting.
Good. I didn't ask you before if you have like a faith or a spirituality or anything like that you were leaning on during that course, like either prior or something that's developed since, or did your relationship change with that idea?
It's a little bit of a mixture. I tell people I go to church when my mother makes me, right? So Christmas, things like that. But I do believe, I think we all have some type of faith, whether it's faith in a God, faith in a religion, faith in our doctors, faith in ourselves, right? We've got that, something that is going on. I definitely felt, I mean, several of the times before I went in for surgery, I had the minister come in. I mean, it was kind of like hedging my bet, maybe, let's get a little extra in here. But, it was just, and I know that I had, so many friends who were praying for me, sending healing thoughts, all of those. And I always felt that, I felt like there was this bubble around me of all of that. And so I was never alone. And it was a little unusual, but it was also very comforting to know that was there. And I think, we also have angels who watch over us. Since I've gone through all of this, I had a tattoo that I got, and initially it just says warrior, because, like I said, I am a warrior. But then I have added to it with the angels in my life, who I know are looking over me. So kind of symbolic representations of them. And it's right where it's on my forearm. And so when I am at the doctor, when I'm in the hospital, I can see it and touch it. And I know that those people, those entities, those critters, because my dogs and my cats are represented there too, right? I know that they're there watching over me. No matter what's going to happen, I know that I'm not alone. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things, is just to know we're not alone in this.
As you started to transition through that period and into time when you could start to remove some of your hookups, as it were, and, starting to feel that you were on the other side of it, how did that start to change you? What had shifted for you in terms of your perspective about who you are, what you're here to do, just generally in the world, because we go through darkness and not come out changed. So what had really changed for you in terms of how that transformed you in a way that you know that nothing else could have done so?
Part of it was, not having the toxic people in your life. Sometimes we have to, they're kind of there no matter what, but dealing with them as little as possible and definitely not engaging with them. And just kind of gently pushing them aside and for whatever reason they're like that, and we're not going to change them, so why get sucked into that? But I also really did think, what is it that I'm doing with my life? How can I help others? And and I mean, it's not just trying not to die.live. I'm a volunteer and all sorts of things. My business, I work with clients that I really, really like working with, right? As an entrepreneur, one of the things that we all, I think, sometimes struggle with is taking on clients that we might not really want to work with, but we got bills to pay. And so sometimes we have to do it, right? Like I said, we got bills to pay, but really figuring out what it is that we want to do, and so I didn't change what I do. I mean, I have a marketing firm and that's still what I do, but I truly enjoy the clients that I have. And I like working with them. I mean, they're just good people. I'm Facebook friends with them. You really do think, what mark am I leaving? The tricky thing with having stage 4 breast cancer, and not all cancers are like this, but with stage 4 breast cancer, it never completely goes away. It's just kind of there. It's like this shadow that's kind of waiting to come back. And so I do know that my time might be shorter, might not. I mean, you really don't know those things, right? We don't have that expiration date printed on us anywhere. But you do think, okay, if my life is shorter than what I had originally thought it would be, it's kind of like they say, that you don't want your headstone to say, I wish I would have. You want to do all those things. You got a bucket list, fine. Do those things now. Don't put them off. Maybe you can't afford it now. Okay, start saving for it, or change what it is. Don't put those things off. One of the things that I really try and do is, and it startles people on occasion, which is kind of fun, is to tell them I love them. It's because I'm so appreciative of their friendships and their support, and I do love them. But we kind of got, as a society, especially here in the States, we don't say, "Oh, I love you," or we just love ya, right? But to really look at somebody or write them a message and say, "I just wanted you to know that I love you." It really does. I think it makes a difference, and I think we need to do that more. Not just the love ya, but but it has to be real, right?
Right.
But I think we need to be more appreciative of what is around us.
So tell me about tryingnottodie.live.
Well, thank you so much. So the website is www.tryingnottodie.live. Tryingnottodie.com was taken. How rude. But I am a marketing person. And when I saw tryingnottodie.live, it was kind of like, well, duh. And so we provide support to 3 different types of people, or groups, but LIVE is an acronym. So we are leading our tribes. We are invigorating our souls. We're voicing our feelings, right? This is not the time to go, oh, eh. And we're elevating our mindset to know that whatever we do, it will be okay. And so we do work with people who have cancer. That's kind of the obvious thing. But I'm currently working with 2 young women who were very recently diagnosed. One just had surgery, and the other is in the hospital right now. So, how can I support them? We also work with those who support those who have cancer, the family, the friends, the loved ones. Like I said, many of them come to me and say, we don't know what to do. And so I tell them, one of the worst things would be to say, Carol May, and this is what we all do, right? Carol May, just tell me what you need. And we mean well. We really, and because we want to help. But the cancer patient, our brains are already so scrabbled and that we don't know, and we don't want to intrude and we don't want to be a bother. But if you were to say, can I bring you dinner on Thursday? Then I can go, Thursday's not going to work, but Friday. We had people who, it was so funny. I remember this. They contacted us and they said, do your dogs need to go to the vet for shots? Because they knew my husband didn't have time to do it. I mean, that was something that we could focus on. And so as that support system, ask those people specific questions. Don't just say, let me know what you need. Maybe it's, I'm going to the store. Do you need something? Or can I come over and just sit with you, take a book? Because they might be like me and fall asleep. But what can you do? And so that's one of the things that we really talk to people a lot about is how can you help those who have cancer? And then we work with medical care people. Here in the States, it's so funny. They call it patient-centered care. Mm. And I'm a marketing person. And I tell them, no, that's really called customer support. Y'all suck. And it's not their fault. I mean, for one thing, they cannot get wrapped up in every one of their patients' lives. They couldn't survive. I mean, they could not. They have to have empathy, but it can only go so far. But how can they make us feel like we're not just patient number 3 in the 10 that they are required to see in that hour? When I had thyroid cancer, that's my most recent diagnosis. And, I was seeing the doctor who knows all about tryingnottodie.live. He's a wonderful person and has been supportive of it. But I heard his staff say, hey, the thyroid cancer's in room 4. And I went out and I said, excuse me, I'm Deb. I'm not the thyroid cancer patient. And I said, that's my diagnosis, but I am a person first and foremost. And I understand here in the States, we have HIPAA. They can't be yelling out our name for everybody to hear. I mean, all sorts of things like that. But how, as a care provider, can you provide care? It's, what are those things? And so those are really the main things that we do. We also work with employers. What do they do if they have an employee who is on some type of cancer journey? Because again, we have a lot of laws that apply. You can't just come out and say, hey, what's going on? If they don't want to share, they don't have to share. And more importantly, they might have told you, but what if they tell you, but you can't tell anybody? And so then you've got coworkers saying, well, how come Deb gets to go home at 3 every day? And so how do we deal with those? But it's about how do we, overall, it is about how do we build those support systems? How can we help each other? And, because it is through doing this together that we will survive it.
For the people who are the carers of those who have the diagnosis, they'll be going through some stuff as well. How can they be supported through your organization or in the wider community where that there is someone who is supporting a spouse or a loved one in their family who has a cancer diagnosis? Because it's a ripple effect. Any kind of core illness within a family is not just the person who is dealing with it, but who of course is dealing with the crux of it, but that energetic load rolls out in such a major way and affects more people than people probably really realize.
Well, I definitely believe that our caregivers are truly our superheroes. We couldn't get through it without them. But the problem is we as the patient sometimes take that for granted, take that for advantage. And even just telling them thank you really would help, right? But we need to offer the caregivers the same support that we are offering the cancer patient. What can I do for you? You're the one who is now the caregiver. Maybe you've got kids at home, so you're still having to take care of them. Maybe you're still having to work. Can I, what can I do to help you get through this? And they have a lot of emotions that they're going through, not the least of which is grief and anger. They're angry that this happened. They're angry that they're having to do this when something they planned on doing, right? Then they're guilty. Oh my gosh, why am I feeling mad that, I'm supposed to be taking care of them, right? Well, no, that anger is perfectly normal. And so how can we help them? And sometimes it's can we give you a break? Can we take your kids to the park today? Can we bring dinner? Can we come clean the house? We have a private Facebook group it's a great place that's kind of it's private so that people can share their concerns and things. And one person posted in there, she was a caregiver for her husband. He has since passed away, but she said one time she opens the door and there's her friends with buckets, mops, the whole works. We're here to clean your house because we know you've been busy. And she said her first thought was absolute mortification, then anger, and then, oh my God, thank you so much. Right. And they did. They went through and cleaned her house top to bottom. Now, you probably shouldn't just appear like that, but just making that offer to come over and what can we help you as the caregiver to do? Because the caregiver has taken on a job that they truly had never planned on having. They aren't prepared for it. And, sometimes it is, something where, you need to do that. My father had dementia. And the one time where my mom could leave him and go do something was when she went to church. He was not a church going person. He was very spiritual, but just, not a church going guy. And so for an hour-ish or so every week, she went and had her time. Well, then he escaped a couple of times, got out in the cold, had some issues. And so that was no longer going to be something that could happen. And you hate to just lock them in. When people would say, hey, we'll go sit with him for that hour so you can go to church. That was critical. Now this is, I just have to tell this as an aside because it's so much my dad and he was so cute. He had always said, if he went to church, the building would fall down around him. And so she convinced him he needed to start going. And so I, was talking to him and he was having a good day. So he was remembering things. And I said, so Dad, I understand you're now going to church. And he said, yeah. And I said, and the walls didn't fall down, did they? And this sweet little old man looked at me and he said, nope, but I heard him crack. But yeah, what can you offer that caregiver to do something for them? Because everybody focuses on the patient and we forget just how hard it is on those caregivers.
So what is your vision for the organization? Where would you like to see it go?
I personally would like to speak to more groups, so like more physician groups, to be able to truly help them and understand what it is from the patient's point of view. That we are not patients, we are people. So to be able to do that more, it's kind of interesting. I always think about this because it's how big do you want something to grow, right? And we're taught that when we start something, it should grow. If we're starting a new business, we need to grow in revenue, we need to grow in clients. And while I want to increase the number of people we help, I always want to be able to be there myself to help them. Now, that's very egotistical. And I get that in my head. And so what I also need to have are people, not clones of me, but people who have who can do also what I do, because it would be great if this outlived me. That's what a lot of nonprofits do. We're not a nonprofit, but and so how can we help more people? So how can I get more people in that role of kind of doing what I do to provide that personal contact? I was texting with somebody at 1:00 last night. We do want to grow. The more people we can serve, the better. It's weird though, because it's kind of like, I don't want to serve anybody because that means nobody needs us. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. I mean, the statistics are not anywhere near our favor. But how can we help more people? And even if it's just that they know they're not alone, I think that's really big. Because I think, like our Facebook group, I said, I think we have a lot of lurkers. They read the post, but they don't ever do anything. But maybe there was something that they did. They just didn't feel the need to respond to it. And so I think it's very important that we just continue providing that support to anyone who needs it.
Is there anything that you felt has been left unsaid in your journey in the conversations that you have? Is there always something that you wish, a question that you wish someone would ask you, or that something in your messaging isn't quite, there's a part, I want to go down this road, I want to open up more, I want to say this, or I wish I'd said this at certain points, we always have these kind of secret desires about ourselves. Like, is there that within you?
There is. I think part of it is we need to trust others. And at the same time, people need to maybe pry. I hate to use that word, but a little bit more, because they might say, Carol May, how are you doing today? And you'll say, I'm fine. And we really say that to our medical people, right? So Miss Krier, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm fine. Now, I could be ready to die, or I could be ready to run a marathon, or anywhere in between, but I'm just going to tell them I'm fine. And, and my friends do that all the time. Deb, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. It was, but part of it, we don't want to bother. But we also need to realize that they wouldn't have asked if they didn't care at least a little bit. Now, we don't need to dump on them, right? But yeah, it was interesting. I attended a conference over the weekend, and someone who I have known for quite a long time was there, and she's known, what I've been going through. And she said, so how are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm doing as okay as I'm going to do. And she got this very, oh my gosh, look. And I thought, oh no, I've just ruined her day. And so then I immediately was building her, no, I'm fine. It's okay. And I mean, it was just kind of a flip answer. I mean, people ask me, how you doing? And it really is, well, I'm not looking up at 6 feet of dirt, so I'm doing pretty good. But I think we need to open ourselves up more in appropriate ways, because there are people who, and it's not that they don't care, they don't want to know. I mean, and that's fine. I don't want to know how the lady in the store next to me is doing. So even if I say, how you doing today, I don't expect her to give me, the details. But how can we allow others to help us, and how can we help them? And part of that is being true to ourselves and being honest. It's kind of like the V in live. It is voice your feelings. We have to be honest with what's going on, because, God bless them, but nobody's a mind reader. So how can we really help them help us? But yeah, it's like we were saying at the very start, if they're not really wanting to help, they probably won't ask, or they'll only ask once, and then go, oh, okay, no, that wasn't what I wanted. And that's fine, really. Like I said, I wish them well. And we just kind of go our separate ways, or they just kind of lurk, and they click like on a post now and then, and that's perfectly fine too. That's the level that they're comfortable with. But how can we voice our feelings? People can't help us, whether we are a patient, a caregiver, or whoever, if we aren't honestly saying we need help. This is what I need, and just let people know this is what's going on.
And do you, and this is me asking you directly, because in response to just something that you said in that last reply, is, do you have that space and that place and that person that you can dump on when you need to? Are you allowing that to happen for yourself?
There are a couple people, obviously my spouse, my husband, Tom, but
it's not always the obviously though.
Right. Sometimes even if I get up from a chair and I'm like, ow, I mean, the look of panic on his face is just heartbreaking. And so I don't always tell him when I'm not having a good day, or I'm just feeling a little out of sorts. People, they always tell me, oh, you're so cheerful. Well, that's what I show people, right? I am not always cheerful. I have chronic pain. I mean, that's, and several other ongoing issues that we really don't need to talk about. But, there's just always something there. but there are, other friends that I have, and it's really funny because sometimes it's different things. If I'm feeling bad, if I'm cranky, if I'm overworked, I mean, different vents, different people that I can vent to. And then of course, I will admit then after I kind of do that, then I almost immediately feel guilty that I have bothered them, that I have interrupted their day. And so I will say something to them, oh, sorry, I dumped on you. And they very rightly chastise me and say, no, no, no. But then I also really try and keep in mind asking them, is there something I can do for you? What's going on with you? And letting them know that it is a two-way street. But yeah, you're so right. It is so important to have those people that you can, and for some, I mean, it very much, we've talked about spiritual. For some people, it really is talking to God, talking to a minister, all of those. I mean, that's if that's what your soul and your heart feels you need to do, then you need to do those. I mentioned that I'm working with a young woman right now. She is 35 and she just had a double mastectomy. That's not an easy thing at 35. But her messages to me have been filled with so much faith in God that she knows that no matter what will happen, God has her. And she did say she's angry. I mean, she's not, all hearts and flowers, but her faith is one of the biggest things that will get her through this. And she said, oh yeah, I talk to God all the time. And then there are also, right, we talk, I mentioned our angels. Sometimes we do talk to our angels. Now, if they talk back, that's a little concerning, but sometimes it really is just a matter of, doing that and knowing that, just putting that voice out there, it's kind of like having your intentions, right? You put your intentions out there, something will happen.
Have you written a book, Deb? I didn't ask.
I have not. I just don't know. I mean, yeah, my story is different. It's not unique. I mean, well, I will change that.
But
all of our stories are unique.
Story.
Yeah. Yes. For every one of us, our story is unique. Would it be something other people would be interested in? That's the thing. But I also know that sometimes just writing a book is very much like journaling and things like that. It kind of helps you through a healing process, and so, but yeah, I haven't yet. I've had several ghostwriters who have talked to me, and who knows, maybe I will one day, but not yet.
But if you get someone lucky enough to ghostwrite it for you, go for it, because writing a book is a thing. I'm going through it at the moment. And
I know, I can't wait to read yours. It's going to be so much fun.
One thing I will say about the process of writing a book, one, it's something that I started years ago and put down. And then in the recent year, with just really kind of reorganizing myself, I felt that this was the time. And in the time that I put it down and the time that I've picked it up, so much had happened that, like, actually, had I have completed it at that point, there would have been a big chunk of experience that would have, I don't know what I would have written about, but I'd been through plenty. Whereas now it's like, okay, that's a good chapter, to close down on in terms of like that first book that kind of talks about all the work that I'm doing now. So it just shows how life makes sense. It's transformative in many ways, but especially with yourself, you and your story and your outlook, having been through so much and created so much as a result, that there are people that would definitely be interested in your story, and the fact that ghostwriters have come to you and grabbed it.
Well, and yeah, it's and thank you for suggesting it. It really is. No matter how we can help others, that's what we should be doing, right? And if they read our blog posts, if they read our books, all of those, if we help just one person, then it made it worth it, right?
Yeah. Any last words from you, Deb, before we sign?
No, again, thank you so much. This has been such a delight to be part of your circle, because what you do is wonderful, and I love it, and I can't wait to carry the conversation further when we talk about your book sometime.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Let everybody know where they can find you and support you, please.
Well, thank you so much. Again, it's www.tryingnottodie.live, Live. You'll find all of the information there. We'll have a link to this podcast on there. And so, that will be there. But there are ways to connect with me there, either, through a Zoom call or something like that, or just, an email. And then there's also a link there for our Facebook group. As I mentioned, it is a private Facebook group. It is a safe place where people can share their feelings. I chose to make it private so that we don't have the people there who maybe are not the people we want in the group. So it is private, and it's real easy to. I mean, you just click the link and we're going to put you in. But yeah, it really is a great place for people to share. Now, we do try and keep it funny. The one thing that we didn't talk about is how we've had humor through this whole process. And I'm a firm believer that humor is a very big part of healing. There are physical and emotional reasons for it, right? But so in our Facebook group, we laugh, we joke, we do all sorts of things. But how can we support people? And so that is something that I think is very important. So we welcome anybody who is on their cancer journey, even if it's a journey in the past and they've gotten through it. They can help others, and I think that's one of the most important things. Is to be able to say, hey, I've got a great recipe for something that might help with nausea, or I know what you're feeling. How can I help? Things like that. So don't think that you have to be right in the throes of this, or even if you're not, in any way, we have people who cancer has not touched their lives. God bless them, right? But they're finding inspiration in the group, and so that's always good too.
Thank you so much for today, Deb.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deb, for sharing with me on this episode, and thank you for listening. Find out more about me on my website. That's carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaywhittick.com. Find me on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook, Carol May Whittick, and on Instagram, Casmic, CAZMICK. So until the next episode, take care. Thank you.